Hello everybody and welcome back to PSVR2 News, the show where we go over everything that's happening PSVR2 at the moment. And there's a couple things I missed in my last installment of this and a couple of things that have happened since that we're going to be going over today. From a couple of shadow drops to updates coming to games passing certification, which is always a good thing, there's a lot to talk about here, so let's get into it. After you subscribe if you're not already, because only 25% of you are, and we thank our patrons and members who are on screen right now. With that being said, let's dive into this, shall we? First up, IOI have teased more VR news to come soon. Now, if you didn't know, these are the guys behind Hitman World of Assassination and the upcoming James Bond 007 First Light game launching next year. Now, they've been teasing something new, and essentially all they said is that Hitman World of Assassination on PSVR2 has had raving reviews, they're really proud of it, it's done well, and they'll have more VR news upcoming fairly soon. Now, this could be one of two things in my mind. It could either be the more likely option, which is that Hitman World of Assassination on PC is going to be getting all of the improvements and bells and whistles that the PSVR2 version has, minus the adaptive triggers and headset haptics and everything like that, but the actual mechanics and the polish of that will be ported over to PC so PC players can enjoy it, because the PC port of World of Assassination and Hitman 3 isn't very good. It's buggy, it's a bit of a mess, a lot of people really don't like it, so it would make the PC players very happy to bring that over and whack it onto that platform. That is the more likely of the two, I would say, especially if it's news coming sooner rather than later. The second and least likely possibility in my eyes is that we could get an announcement for 007 First Light coming to VR, whether it's on PSVR2 or on PC. Now, this is far-fetched, I'm going to say. I don't think it's impossible for this to happen in the grand scheme of things. I think maybe a year after launch or a couple months after launch, we could see an announcement saying, okay, Hitman did well, we're going to be doing 007, and here you go, the entire campaign in VR, and you can enjoy it on PSVR2, all the bells and whistles, all the headset haptics, all the rumble, all the adaptive triggers. There you go. I can see that happening at some point. However, I don't know if I'd see it happening as soon as this new VR announcement might be. They could surprise us. They could say, we're planning to implement it after launch, like FNAF Secret of the Mimic has done, and how Resident Evil 4 did. But I did just want to throw that out there, like this probably isn't what's going to happen, but just imagine if they did come out saying James Bond is going to be VR compatible. Honestly, that's the only way I would play the game. I'm so excited for that in the flat screen nonetheless, but if it was in VR, man, that would make it so much better. You could become 007 and go through this amazing campaign, driving cars, taking on enemies, and becoming Bond. That would be the dream, so we'll see. I'm gonna say it's probably gonna be that PC port of World of Assassination or something similar. Maybe another IO Interactive game getting VR support that's not Bond, because Bond is a little while away, but who knows, they could surprise us and say we're planning to do VR support for Bond on whatever platform when it drops, which would be really cool, but we'll see. 4 Undead Citadel, and that's today, it's escaping Wonderland. I had no idea about this, I didn't know that this was happening, and I've only just got in touch with the team. They haven't got back to me yet, but hopefully they do. But essentially, Escaping Wonderland is a puzzle game where you fall down the rabbit hole into Wonderland, hours of puzzles, great characters from Alice in Wonderland, and an immersive diorama-style environment around you. The early impressions of this one have been positive for PSVR2, so I'm excited to get my hands on it if I end up doing so. Before we go any further, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsor of today's video, Tactical VR Gear, who do the Armory R1 gun stock. Now, this is my go-to gun stock for all PSVR2 games, mostly because it's so easy and effortless to put together. The Armory R1 doesn't use any magnets. You simply click in with one hand, tighten it up so your controller doesn't fall out, and then your other hand and controller is free, so you're free to reload, use equipment, throw grenades, manage your inventory in intense games like Ghost of Tabor and Breaches, and it gives you a real edge over non-gun stock players, as you can take those long-range shots without having wobbly hands. Honestly, I really feel the difference between using a gun stock and not using a gun stock, and the Armory R1 is a great choice for its build quality as well, because it's not 3D printed, it's injection molded, so it feels nice in the hands. And it's also very, very light, so you're not going to get worn out quickly. Check them out in the link in the description below. I personally use mine for my shooter games, and I really love it. With that being said, let's continue with the news. We also got the news that Beat Saber is ending support for PS4 and PS5, starting this month in June 2025. This is really not confusing to me, but, well, a little confusing, but just disappointing. It seems that Beat Games, who I think are run by Meta now, have just decided to not release any more music packs. The multiplayer will go offline after January 21st, 2026, but the game still will be available to purchase for single player. The reason I say this is kind of confusing is because Beat Saber is still one of the most popular and most bought games on PSVR2 if you look at the charts every month, both in the EU and in the US. I don't really understand this decision, and that's really annoying that one of the flagship games will not have any of the new content, and I really hope they reconsider. But fuck, yeah, doesn't seem like we're going to be getting any of the new music packs going forward after this month, so that sucks. Of course, in a couple days as well, we have the release of Maestro. There is no embargo on Maestro reviews. I have requested a key, but it takes some verification process and I haven't got one yet, but you might see a couple of reviews pop up from other channels. I'll try and get my hands on it as soon as possible because I'd like to ideally put something out before launch, but Maestro is the orchestra conducting game with hand tracking, so I'm really excited to see how this one plays on PSVR2. Really excited to jump in, especially testing those Star Wars tracks. So yeah, excited for that one. But that's in a couple of days on the 20th, I believe. We had the launch of Badminton Time yesterday as well. It's, as you can imagine, a badminton PSVR2 game. It works decently well in single player, but the multiplayer from what we've seen has had some issues with collision and not being able to hit shots properly. There isn't that much content to go around here, and the sound design was a bit lacking, but overall I did enjoy it. And if you're looking for that Wii Sports style fix where you just jump in and play a couple games with a friend, in a casual sense, it's probably going to be a fun time. But again, not that much to it. We got some great news as well that Richie's Plank experience has passed QA testing by Sony. Now, they still want to do a little bit of work to the game before it actually goes out, so I think they described it as them wanting to do QA themselves and get it up to a place where they're really, really proud of it. But in terms of passing Sony's requirements for safety and certification or whatever, they're happy. I think it's a light to green, go ahead, and hopefully we should see Richie's Plank experience come to PSVR2 fairly soon. This is exactly what it sounds like. There's a plank at the top of a building and you walk along it, and it's one of the original VR experiences, and I remember being really freaked out by it on the HTC Vive way back when, so excited to see that finally come over. There's a lot more to the game than what I've just described. You can fly around the city and there's a bunch of challenges and stuff, but that was the main experience that people would put their relatives and friends on when they first got the game, but hopefully soon since it's past QA now. Penultimately, I want to draw some spotlight on something that, honestly, I don't really think deep down is going to make too much difference, but it's worth putting out there anyway. So on change.org, there has been a petition created for Sony to take PSVR2 seriously, essentially. It's on 1,115 signatures at the time of recording, and reads as follows. Dear PlayStation team, we the proud owners of PSVR2 are writing to express our awe and enthusiasm for this groundbreaking hardware. For many of us, the PSVR2 is the PlayStation 5. While the PS5 feels like an enhanced PS4, the PSVR2 is a revolutionary leap, akin to the jump from Super Nintendo to the original PlayStation. It's dramatic, exciting, and deeply immersive. The PSVR2 represents the future of gaming, but it's being underutilized and overlooked even by its creators. We believe in its potential and urge Sony to give it the support it deserves. Here are our requests. Make the price reflect its potential. The recent Days of Play discount showed significant demand for the PSVR2 when priced competitively. This hardware is exceptional, it just needs to be accessible. Set a permanent price of $349 to drive adoption, or aim for $299 to make it a must-have for gamers. Sony has taken short-term losses before, example PS3, to secure long-term successes. This is that moment. Number 2, unlock the app ecosystem. Platforms like Apple Vision Pro offer native VR apps for YouTube, Disney, and media players. Despite its incredible potential, the PSVR2 lacks these apps, even though it's capable of delivering similar immersive experiences. Developers cite difficult porting processes and minimal support from Sony as barriers. To fix this, collaborate directly with app developers to bring popular apps like YouTube VR and Disney Plus VR to PSVR2. Simplify development with better tools, incentives, and technical support. Enable immersive experiences like virtual cinemas, 3D streaming, and media playback. Now, I'm going to pause here for a second. The first one of these, I've got a couple thoughts on as well, the price point. It's true that when Sony brought down the price, a lot of people bought PSVR2, and I mean a lot, looking at the numbers behind the scenes from different retailers, but I'm not sure if $299 is a realistic option, $349 maybe. But Sony would seriously have to take a hit, and I don't know if they would be willing to do that in this day and age. It's a very different marketplace and ecosystem and landscape than it was in the PS3 era, but it's a nice thought, and I think it could help. As for the ecosystem, a lot of the barriers seems to be with Sony QA rather than porting itself. From what I've heard, but again, I could be wrong, I'm not a developer. But yeah, that's true. I wish Sony were more lenient with the QA barriers, because some just absolute shit gets through, and some great games, like Ghost of Tavor were held back for ages and ages and ages, and we finally got them, but some developers don't feel like making that effort, so that's a good point as well. I'd love to see what they're suggesting here as well, like virtual cinemas and 3D streaming. I know 3D Blu-rays aren't supported on the PS5. I don't think it has the tech in the reader to do that, if I remember correctly, while the PS4 does. That's why we have 3D in the PS4 but not the PS5 for PSVR1 versus PSVR2. But 3D streaming could be possible, that'd be great. And YouTube VR and Disney Plus VR would be awesome as well. I don't know whether some of those are tied to Apple Vision as kind of like an exclusive thing, but if not, it'd be great to see them on PSVR2. The third point here is 3D Blu-ray support. Now, this change.org petition says the hardware is capable, it just needs activation for 3D Blu-ray support. I don't know if that is true. From what I've kind of been told in the past, the PS5 doesn't have that tech in there to allow for 3D Blu-rays to be played back on the flat screen or in VR, so I'm not sure about that. If I'm wrong, then great, it would be possible in the future, but last time I suggested that 3D movies be made compatible with Blu-ray on PSVR2, I was told that it's just not possible with the base PS5 hardware, but I could be wrong with that. And the only other point that I'll really bring up here, because there are a couple more, but the main one for me is that they want Sony to develop first-party VR games, and I back this completely, because it's great having, Capcom take up the reins and IOI to help out and be funded by Sony, but it would be great to see, Spider-Man, Astro Bot, Uncharted, God of War, all these great games be brought over to virtual reality, and I don't see that happening right now, and hopefully at some point we could see some of these be brought over, whether it's with not even the main studios that make these games like Santa Monica or Insomniac, maybe have a smaller studio like Firesprite did for Guerrilla with Horizon. Give them the reins, let them do what they want, and create a cool VR experience. But yeah, I thought it'd be worth kind of relaying some of the points of this change.org petition. At the end of the day, these don't tend to make massive differences. We've seen in the past, especially in the gaming space, but they make some good points, and if somebody from Sony sees this and potentially would be up for starting some talks with creating a virtual cinema environment or bringing YouTube and Disney over, then who knows what could happen. So yeah. And finally, we got a brand new map for Walkabout Mini Golf. Now this is a really cool looking one. It's the 4th lair for Walkabout. This is the Crystal Lair. It's advertised as a Venezuelan mountain wellness resort. And on June 26th, it drops on PSVR2 as well as other platforms. And Walkabout, I think, is now on iOS now as well, which is crazy. Of course, it's a crystal lair, so there's probably some nefarious stuff happening below it, and I'm sure it will be packed with detail, as they always are in Walkabout Mini Golf, but I'm excited to jump in there. Not really much else to say other than every time they come out with a new map, I always love it, so I'm sure this will be exactly the same as the others in terms of how much I enjoy it. The last one was an all-time classic, the dinosaur one, so this looks great. Anyway, that'll be all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.